These scales are so important to us today. And I tell you, family, that no matter which way this verdict goes with our beloved George Floyd, we are going to go through some tumultuous times. Greetings and Hotep. I am Dr. Nteri Nelson, a metaphysician, clinician, and educator, and co-founder of the Academy of Kemetic Education and Wellness. Today's Building the Lighted Temple Wisdom Service teaching is entitled Maat, White Supremacy on Trial, the World Verdict. Yes, family, Maat, White Supremacy on Trial, the World Verdict. And in this teaching, I will make 5 key points. Number 1, what's on trial is not only America, but the world. The white supremacy is on trial because other European countries have been complicit in this white supremacist paradigm that has been gripping our planet. We see the manifestations of this, many manifestations of it. For example, in the Papal Bull, which please do look up the Papal Bull. Look up the Berlin Conference where Africa is divided like a pie. And in the Papal Bull, the conqueror, the transport of enslaved Africans is sanctioned out of Africa to remove Africans out of Africa, and the conquering of the lands in Africa are sanctioned. So when we look at what is on trial here, we are looking at the whole paradigm of white supremacy being on trial. And all that have benefited, that bring us to this current moment with the murder and the trial of George Floyd, which is such a potent and palpable symbol of the externalization we now see of this evil of white supremacy worldwide in such a glaring way that the whole world has a wide angle view on this white supremacist paradigm. So we see at this moment the full externalization of this evil, this wrongdoing, what our African ancestors call isfet. Yes, family, our African ancestors call this isfet. And why is it that we are able to see this externalization of this wrongdoing, this isfet, in such a glaring and palpable way? It is because of other things that are happening on our planet at this time, which I talk about extensively in other videos. But the shift from this materialization in consciousness to a re-spiritualization in consciousness cycle, which has caused now, with the bathing of these spiritual energies on our planet, the inflow of these spiritual energies on our planet has caused that veil to grow, and we are very thin. So everything is just right before our eyes, very apparent, very externalized for all to see. I'll talk more about that materialization and re-spiritualization in consciousness cycle in a moment. So point number 2, how have our laws of of Maat been governing universal behavior, universal action? How have our laws been governing? We have, as African people, a body of laws called the 42 Laws of Maat. These are universal laws of right relationship, harmony, justice, balance, reciprocity, order, and foremost, truth. And when we look within our sacred text to locate these laws, and we locate them in our sacred text called the Purge, I'll hold my very well-worn copy up for you for a moment to see. When we look for this corpus of law in the Purge, which would later be called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, erroneously called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, we find these laws that teach us and guide us how to live harmoniously, how to live in accord with nature and in balance and in harmony. And our Nteri Maat, I'll just hold up a statue of her. This is the symbol for our Nteri Maat, and we learn more about this symbol and the laws and our history in these Building the Lighted Temple Wisdom Studies. Our beautiful goddess Maat, this is the symbol of Maat in her winged beauty, in her feather upon her head. I want to show you this beauty that our African ancestors have taught us and teach us. And we will learn as time goes on that it is Maat who is over the scales of justice that we come before, and where our heart is placed on one side of the scale, and it has to be lighter because it is weighed against the feather of Maat. But for the purpose of this lesson, we turn to the 42 laws to find in particular law number 4, which says, I have done no murder, I have done no harm, because that's what's at stake here, and that is what is on trial. And moreover, we look to law number 19, which says, I have not been angry or wrathful except for a just cause. Yes, family, our laws of Maat teach us that to be able to affirm that we have not been angry or wrathful except for a just cause. And so we are justified in our feelings when we encounter injustice in our opposition to isfet, wrongdoing, acts of blatant injustice that we face now and have been facing for since 1619. We have been facing these wrongdoings, and prior on the continent of Africa, we faced wrongdoings for millennia. So point number three brings us to look at the verdict. So in regard to the verdict will either way is a moment of emotional upheaval as the planet witnesses what will be birthed in this very pregnant, potent moment. So if the verdict is innocent for the accused in the murder of George Floyd, there will once again, no doubt, be a huge outcry of pain, outrage, and despair from African and African diaspora people. Yes, despair and pain and outrage. And if the accused is guilty for if the accused is found guilty in the murder of George Floyd, there will no doubt be a huge outcry from African diaspora of an emotion rarely massaged, rarely felt, occasioned by this glimmer of justice, one that would make us want to celebrate. Yes, family, an emotion rarely felt and occasioned by this glimmer of justice. Which brings us to then point number 4, where we have to just take note that, on the other hand, those who would seek to maintain a white supremacist paradigm will have a huge outcry of emotion also. And it is this materialization in consciousness and this paradigm of white supremacy that has gripped the planet that is now being fully reckoned with. As I said earlier, in this materialization cycle on our planet, we have been under this grip of this materialization in consciousness, this consciousness that would seek to rape and rob and plunder our planet, and where this paradigm of white supremacy has grown, has become full grown. And the way I talk about that white supremacist paradigm is to say that it is like a fire-breathing dragon. And yes, family, as I have said in other videos, that dragon has been hit a death blow. It has been dealt a death blow at this time in our planetary cycle, as we now undergo this dimensional shift to move into a re-spiritualization of consciousness cycle. And in that shift of re-spiritualization in consciousness cycle, we now have those spiritual energies bathing our planet and casting that light upon that material consciousness. And these two are clashing. There is a clashing that has happened between this this material consciousness and this re-spiritualization of consciousness, and in the midst, this white supremacist paradigm, this fire-breathing dragon. And what I say about this fire-breathing dragon, even though it has been dealt a death blow, family, it is most dangerous. Why? Because not only do we have to watch out for the fire, but we have to watch out now for the tail that will whip around and take as many in its path as it can, sucking the life out of as many as it can in its path as the cycle closes and it undergoes a death. Now, in the midst of this dimensional shift, in the midst of these contending forces, the material forces and the spiritual forces, and in the midst of the writhing of this and agonizing of this white supremacist, fiery breathing dragon, we will see, as we have seen many times before, how evil or Isfet seeks to regather itself. Yes, family, many things have been put in place to seemingly suggest that there has been change so that justice would prevail. And yet, when we start to begin to celebrate, we see that energy raise its head again, that fire-breathing dragon raise its head again, and that it has, just as evil does, regathers itself under the cover of darkness. It regathers itself again and again and again. And we can witness, as witnessed by how, for example, the Ku Klux Klan of enslavement and Jim Crow just regathered itself in the form of those who are on the police department, those who are in the police department. And so we would see this police brutality, murder, criminalization of Black people, and incarceration coming and reforming and expressing that same evil, expressing itself in a new form. Isfet, evil, seeks to regather itself under the cover of darkness. We also see this dynamic of backlash when we have what would suggest itself as seeming progress. For example, the backlash we experienced under the Obama administration. When the Trump administration came into play, under the Obama administration, there was a suggestion that something had gotten better, different with racial tensions. And yet under the Trump administration, we see this backlash of brutality toward Black and brown people. What are the metaphysics of backlash? The metaphysics of backlash are when we have a structure of white supremacy. That structure seeks to hold its form, even though that form has become dry and brittle and crystallized. It seeks to hold its form. And as there is push against that form, we see that it will seek to spring back to its prior strength and structure. And so this march toward justice is a gradual one of pushing back and bending toward balance in those scales so that there is justice for all. It is a process to be ever vigilant and steadfast in our pursuit for justice and balance and harmony and equality under the law and under the laws of Maat. So as we're making this dimensional shift on our planet, into the Aquarius age, the age of Hapi, and we're undergoing this re-spiritualization cycle. Those spiritual energies, that light that is now bathing our earth, makes it more and more challenging for evil to regather itself. As light continues to bathe our earth in this re-spiritualization and consciousness cycle, as we move deeper into this re-spiritualization of consciousness cycle, that evil, that isfet, that would seek to regather itself and erect its form, fortify its form, reconstruct its form, will have less and less hiding place, and will succumb ultimately to this re-spiritualization cycle. So point number 5, if the verdict is innocent for the accused in the murder of George Floyd, the law of Maat says, I have not been angry or wrathful except for a just cause. Yes, family, I have not been angry or wrathful except for a just cause. So if the verdict is innocent, then let us use this anger to build the new world with all deliberate speed. While, yes, family, while continuing to dismantle and cut off the rubble of this white supremacist paradigm. And family, if the verdict is guilty for the accused in the murder of George Floyd, we will celebrate cautiously, or cautiously celebrate, while we also fortify ourselves. Stay conscious, stay awake, and to be strong against forces of resistance to change that will rear up, that are resistant to this planetary justice, that this dimensional shift and re-spiritualization in consciousness cycle will assuredly bring. Let us be vigilant in the work and fortifying ourselves as we move with the planetary momentum in making this re-spiritualization and consciousness shift, so that this old energy is cast down and out, and we open to an ever widening of expanse in this dimensional shift of our re-spiritualizing planetary consciousness. And to you, family, I say, Onk Uja Sinem. Life, prosperity, and health.